Beg your pardon? Meredith, who is this coarse person with the foreign accent?
It's not a trivial matter to inform people. We have an informed population. This is a mission critical endeavor. And it's just a real shame because like we live in a world where we technologically and progress wise, like we can have really pure information. And we have tools today that our ancestors couldn't have even dreamed of. And we're still playing childish games in our media landscape. And when you read our coverage, it is just reduced to like what exactly happened, when did it happen, and what is the immediate context for you to very briefly understand what's going down right now.
Hey, Kira, welcome. You're running a really interesting service. I played around with it a little bit, but if you introduce yourself quickly and maybe like a 30-second summary for those who don't know, what do you guys do?
Yeah, it'll be a pleasure. Well, Danny, thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate being welcomed on your show. And in brief, with informed.now, which is the company and the project that I'm leading now, we are looking to put the power of facts back in the palm of the everyday person. And we do that by uh, focusing on news, on reimagining the news reading habit. And what we do quite literally is we SMS text you news without clickbait, without ads, without bias, directly to your phone every morning.
Okay, that's awesome. I don't know what your people told you about me, but everyone has to answer something tough in the beginning or at the end.
Anytime.
Yeah, with you, it comes at the beginning, unfortunately, because the tough question is the first thing I thought of when I read about it and tried it out a little bit is what would you say to the people who say you guys are part of the problem? As in, isn't everything already dumbed down and all the nuance is lost and all any real education is lost because people get their information and their opinions from sound bites on TikTok or X posts or something?
Yeah,
Why is short form news? Why is that a good thing for the world?
totally. People really don't have time to read news anymore. I think the emergence of short form content and the emergence of content that is simplifying things. It's not just an accident. It's the consequence or it's a symptom of a world that is drowning in information, where folks don't have the time to read extensive research extensively and just digest all the information that's out there because it keeps multiplying. But the difference between what we do and what, for example, somebody on TikTok or somebody who's just discussing news in a short form way is it could be more different, right? Like our incentives are structurally not aligned to sensationalizing things, right? If you are on TikTok or if you are on any of the kind of traditional news apps, their incentives are kind of one of the two. It's one is to advertise and to get to show you more ads, and two is to create an environment where showing you more ads is possible, right? So that means sensationalizing things, clickbaiting things, rage baiting, and creating an experience where you feel like, oh my God, I have to read this. This is really important. Something's happening. And then you get served more and more ads in the process. Our entire project is sort of how do we not do that? How do we remove the sensationalism out of news? How do we remove the ads out of news altogether? How to remove all the noise that has come to characterize news media and create an experience that just gives you the signal without any of the noise.
Okay. I I really hate to do this to you because I want to go into a little bit about you as a person as well. Some easier questions. Just to follow up on that, who decides what's noise in your system? AI or an editorial team? The removal of bias and noise. This is subjective, right?
in some ways not, right? The way that we organize ourselves, and we definitely have, a mix of software, AI technology that helps us do a lot of the hard work. But we also have a human team of researchers that specialize in research, not in journalism, not in creative writing, not in political poetry, not in celebrities gossip spreading. They specialize in research. And so we bring that skill set and that sort of worldview to our work as a news research company. And what answers the question of kind of like what gets selected is we follow a model. It's a process that we subscribe to, and a process that we kind of pioneer, which is significance-based news, right? What we care about is the type of news around the world, because we cover the whole world, type of news that change the human condition. And that's actually a pretty high bar, because on one hand, that's kind of one of our questions, is it needs to change the lives of millions of people. Can't be a local accident. It can be a, bus crash in Mississippi or a plane crash in Hyderabad. It needs to be a huge, millions of people's lives changing event. Two is it needs to change people's lives by changing their freedom, changing their optionality, changing their security, changing their kind of like social access, changing their culture, changing their healthcare, things that are, shaping life in inevitable ways. And so we use a combination of our technology that is purpose built to our specific use case, right? We're not trying to be a jack of all trades. We want to be really specialist at this one thing. A mix of our technology and our people who are trained in news research specifically, not in news commentary, not in news analysis, not in news regurgitation, not in news propaganda, specifically in news research. And we bring that sort of combination of powers to our significance-based kind of filter. That's like a brief answer. I'm happy to go deep into any of these directions. I'm very glad you're asking me these questions.
Yeah, we go heavy quickly on this program. Uh, it happens sometimes.
Perfect.
So where did you come from this idea? How did you get to where you are? Where were you born?
Yeah. I was born and raised in Ukraine, in the capital of Ukraine called Kiev. And then I sort of spent a really long time of my life in Israel, all around Israel, I could say Tel Aviv as well. And then I spent kind of the last decade or so in the United States, in New York, in Chicago, in San Francisco, in Los Angeles. So I've sort of just seen all these different environments where information conflict and information warfare carried really high stakes, really, really high stakes. And after seeing this play out in Ukraine, then in Israel, then in the United States, I, definitely felt like I wanted to do something about this because it's a very consequential problem. It really changes how people feel, how culture and society is shaped. It's a very consequential part of life. And so just seeing the story play out a few times, I felt very moved to try to help it, try to do something about it, offer an alternative for people to, be able to those people who want to read news without noise, for that experience to be available rather than something that, previously it really has not existed.
Considering you have this connection to two countries that have had a fairly rough go in the past few years, is it misinformation that motivated you to do this, or was it bad news, as in actual people who were meant to be trusted media doing a bad job at what they claim to be doing?
Yeah, it's absolutely both. I mean, the way I describe the problem that we tackle is misinformation overload. So it includes both of those things that you mentioned, as well as the fact that we live in an environment that is informationally obese, meaning that there isn't a problem of, you know, getting content. The problem actually is like the main task is almost like hiding yourself from content. It's almost like literally, how can I almost like avoid content? How can I be defensive against content that is being thrown at me that is much more than I could ever consume. And there's more content being produced every second than you could consume in your entire life. So it's sort of like the three problems, right? It's the things you mentioned. It's the fact that legacy news media has been struggling to, to tell the story in a straight way because of these structural incentives that they have to advertise and to sensationalize things. Number two is there's a lot of misinformation that has malicious intent, right? Like in the case of Ukraine, there's a lot of Russian misinformation. There's a lot of very like malicious, like bad intent efforts at misleading people. And obviously the third, which is the information overload piece that I was just referencing, the third is the fact that there is so much information that people become paralyzed and are kind of unable to deal with that volume of just content. So we package all together and we say that this is the problem of misinformation overload.
Hmm. I see. The tech you're using to say package it all together, is it something revolutionary and fresh and new, or has that existed for a while?
The tech that we have, I would say, is nothing new, right? We were very technologically aware, technologically interested, and we have a lot of technology that enables our work in a way that like we believe that if we didn't have this technology, it would be very, very inefficient. It would be very silly to kind of like use tools from the, from the bronze era in the age of AI, right? So we're not going to be using, sticks and stones to fight the fight that is very modern, right? But at the same time, the differentiation, the alpha, so to speak, our ability to do what we do best isn't just confined to technology, right? It's an approach, it's a process, and it's a mix of technology and human talent.
Super interesting. Where does the human talent come from? Where do you get your what fields are people from?
Yeah, I hinted this earlier when I said, we don't look for journalists, we don't look for reporters, we're not looking for people who are writers. We're looking for people who are researchers. And so we really prioritize that skill set of research and the integrity that also comes with that skill set, right? We're not interested in people who have certain political, social, cultural bias. We're not interested in people who want to be writers and so they want to like write stories. We're actually looking for folks who have a very clinical approach to transferring information, a clinical approach to researching. And so we look for a skill set that is best described as OSINT, open source intelligence or open source investigation. It is an approach to triangulating publicly available information that was used by the CIA and the FBI in the United States for a long time. And it's an approach to researching. It's a creative approach to researching information. We focus primarily on public information. And that's kind of where the big intersection is.
Yeah, interesting. I think I might be good at that. Yeah, like critical thinkers and such, rather than people who've been institutionalized by a corporate way of doing things.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's really cool. Where did you live in Israel, by the way?
Well, the reason I hesitate to say a specific place is because I was moving around all the time that I was there. So there was Tel Aviv, there was Herzliya, Ramat Aviv, Netanya, Eben Yehuda, Herzliya Pituach, all over the map.
These are all very techie places that you're mentioning, aren't they?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Not to mention, I lived the last 5 years of my life in Silicon Valley. So I love I love being around techie places. It's definitely,
Engineers are your crowd.
yeah, and it's a big part of my career, right? Like I spent my career in technology prior to building Inform.now, and I'm very technologically motivated.
Yeah, fair enough. I lived in Jerusalem for 4 years.
Oh, terrific.
Yeah. I know you asked me earlier
Yeah.
offline that I was born in Finland, but I moved to Israel when I was 20.
Terrific.
Yeah, then I moved out when I was 24, I think, to the UK, and I'm still here.
Oh, it's terrific.
What?
That's terrific.
Yeah, what what happened in between is just, as you would know, is a minor administrative procedure. Uh, involving various governments drafting me, in various countries.
Oh my goodness. You're in high demand, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, no, no. I was just an infantry grunt, just a waste of time. Total many years of wasted time. Two
Yeah.
countries, man.
Uh, Wait, so did you wind up serving?
Yeah, yeah, in both. There's a draft in both countries, yeah.
Uh,
Anyway, I didn't wanna like keep any info from you. I just thought maybe the listener is interested too.
I've served.
So if we like get a little blue sky thinking, let's say in 10 years, considering all the technological advancements and all that you said, or that we both said is the problem in how people get their information, are you guys trying to be the solution? I have to say that it's not just texting you the news. There is a reading out audio element as well, which I love, by the way. I consume everything with my ears, which is why I produce things for people to consume with their ears.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that there's a audio thing as well. But is the plan that this is like the future of information?
I mean, that's the hope, right? We're not trying to be a little bit naive in saying, okay, now, we built the solution, therefore the whole world is gonna switch over to it. It's not the goal or the point. It's more around there is a very big number of people, and it's a growing group as well, that is frustrated with the way media is currently administered, so to speak. And these people are looking for an alternative. And an alternative currently does not exist. So we're building that alternative for the people that are seeking that alternative. And that's what we're really focused on, right? So like our dream isn't to be necessarily the default news solution for everybody in the world in a couple of years, although we wouldn't mind that outcome. Our goal is very much to serve the person that is equally frustrated with the way things have been done, the way things are done now, and offer them an alternative that is worthwhile, that is worth their time, that is a worthwhile attempt at serving them in the way that they would prefer to be served.
Hmm. Although, I mean, everything is so video oriented, though. What is the plan for in the text? Will you start including links? Like, will there be a partner maybe that produces smart video content? Because they're pushing me to do video as well. I personally, the short form stuff, I hate it. It's the death of civilization. But what about you guys? People do want to then eventually see as well, like a visual component.
Yeah. So it's funny you mentioned that, right? We do have an Instagram, TikTok presence that's pretty new for us, something that we're exploring. But that is actually just it's almost like a marketing motion for us, right? It's a way of reaching new audiences, new people, and giving them a taste of what we do. But in reality, our product is designed and intentioned to be text only. And our core product has no audio, no video involved with it. It is purely text. And that is intentional because, again, we're looking to create a solution for people who are exhausted by being thrown videos, images, all this rich content on them. Looking for people who want to keep things really simple. Again, really minimalist. That is what our purpose is. And so we don't see in the near term future, a deviation from that.
Yeah. Um, well, you went with subscriptions as well, so this isn't free. Did you think about offering this like blanketed for a certain population for free just to gain users?
Yeah, we're certainly open to that. If there's a group of people that we think is really high fit and it could use the work that we do, we will be delighted to support that, right? Because our goal ultimately is to help the world be more informed. And we keep our price point intentionally very low. right? It's, subscription to inform.now is less than a cup of coffee. And it's designed to be that way. It's designed to be universally, publicly accessible to the everyday person, not just to the professional elite or people that are already very overserved on information services. The reason we use a subscription model is because that's the only way for us to survive without caving into advertiser, sponsor, investor, platform interests. Essentially, not taking any outside capital that would reshape our incentives, that would change what we care about. Because if you start accepting advertisement revenue, you become beholden to that revenue and you optimize for that and you become a business that serves advertisers and not a business that serves readers. And the only way to be a business that serves readers is to only accept revenue from the reader, which is what we do.
Yes. Yes, that makes a great amount of sense to me. So the text, though, I know that it's basically rephrasing a question I kind of already asked, but specifically, since you're a very smart guy and I like to pretend to be one, is there a risk that it's, let's say, people adopt this way of receiving information en masse? Is there a risk of like people becoming lazier thinkers, where nobody needs to do any more research from links because they can ask AI? And AI, by the way, the sources they use are crazy sometimes, like Reddit or something, or X post. But my point is, people don't need to do any qualitative research anymore on the internet. And now, even if you guys have you're saying you have this very admirable cause and philosophy, and you've kind of done it for people and then summarized it, isn't that making people lazy?
It's I don't agree with like the phrasing of it. It's because like right now, the everyday person just doesn't do it, right? And I prefer a world where people are informed and have a way to stay informed to a world where people isolate themselves entirely from news, right? Because the current question isn't even, oh, are we making people lazy? The current thing is, how do we just get people to care again? Because people have stopped reading news, people have stopped following content, and they became so paralyzed by the proliferation of content and so disillusioned with the bias and the noise that's, like a cancer everywhere across news media. So now we're just literally getting people to care again, to believe again that reading news can be worthwhile. And so we're doing it with a very kind of clever, small Trojan horse type of solution. We're like, hey, you don't have to put in a lot of effort, but you should be informed. And what we've seen, right, because we have data on our users and we have kind of research of our operations and our users and our market, what we're actually seeing is the opposite effect. We're not seeing people disconnect further or become kind of lazy. Instead, people are waking up and remembering the power of being informed, the power that comes with knowing the facts, the power that comes with kind of being connected and aware of the world, and the connection that also comes with that to other people, to important conversations, decision making. And so it's sort of like a gateway experience into doing more reading, doing more research, and being more and more interested in news.
Yeah, so it's the opposite. This is to activate
Exactly.
those who might have lulled themselves to an existence where you can trust the machine to give you like a summary to a basic question that's usually wrong or biased or both, or uses bad sources. This is the opposite. You can be inspired to become more informed.
In fact, 100%. And in fact, we sort of show people the way a little bit in terms of we show a standard of what does it look like to have information that doesn't try to manipulate you. What does it look like to have information that is relying on primary sources for its insights instead of on secondhand creative writing? What does it look like to, what are the sources that are trustworthy? What are the ways in reading those sources and what do you pay attention to when you read them that creates high signal, low noise information? So in many ways, we're sort of showing people that, hey, this media landscape that has been very toxic, and has been very difficult to navigate, it's not the only thing out there. And there is, credible information and it's fully accessible to you. We're just showing you how do you actually research? How do you actually access this? And we're doing it in ways that every person can follow us. Any person can kind of see how the sausage gets made. So it's not a secret. We also don't keep our sources, we don't keep our process hidden. We are very, very upfront about it and we're very, very transparent. So a lot of people share kind of being inspired by like, oh, I now have a model of like what clean looks like, of what pure looks like. And I can replicate that. And I can have my own interest in my life across many domains, right? Maybe not just news, but also other types of information. I know what signal looks like among the noise.
Hmm, I see. Another fun question. If you at the end, I mean, we're not pretending like someone's bias isn't going into this. If it's you who in the end decides on the final product what goes out to the readers, what if there was a real way to influence, let's say, one of the countries that you might have an interest in, like Ukraine, for example? If you were able to influence a population for the good, let's say the Russian population, to be against the war, would you do it?
It's not our place. And we focus specifically on North American population, so we are, pretty specific to North America. Like we are active in all the United States and in Canada. In the near future, like that is our focus and bread and butter. So the question hasn't even crossed my mind, but I just don't think of our solution as opinionated in any faculty, right? Like aren't we don't exist to influence people. Our whole kind of like slogan is the opposite. We try to give you the tools to be informed without being influenced. And we take that mission very seriously. Like we're a very mission driven, mission run company that, cares more than anything about honoring its promises. And so for me, it's hard to imagine trying to infuse our content and our mission with some kind of an agenda because our readers come to us for that reason. Our readers come to us to not encounter content with an agenda. And so if we were to start veering away from that, we will lose our base. And we deserve to lose our base because we're going against our core premise.
I understand that. And obviously, it might be difficult for something like this to operate in any kind of authoritarian country anyway, right? Because even if you were independent from the regime, people wouldn't trust that you are. So this is perhaps a luxury that people in democracies can trust this kind of service.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're in the US and Canada now. Are there plans to make it available elsewhere?
Yeah, totally. We're really focused on kind of focusing our efforts in North America because we think America is going through a very pivotal moment in its history, and the news media has never been more broken, has never been more kind of troubling. And so, I'm not saying there aren't other countries that also need this type of help that are also important, of course. But this is a good combination of the market has these needs, the industry is failing to deliver them. It's a market I understand and, live in. And it aligns with like the skill sets, recruitment, like all the kind of ducks line up in a row to focus for us on North America. But there's definitely intention to bring this more globally. Like today, I'm in Japan, and getting a lot of interest in our solution here because people are also interested in signal here. They don't want to have the noise. And so I get a lot of questions of like, hey, when are you coming to this country? When are you coming to that country? We already have like a global product with our email channel, but our SMS, which is our flagship experience, which creates a one-to-one communication, a two-way communication, which is really nice for folks. People can text us, we can interact in a conversational way. that flagship product is focused in North America right now.
Yeah. So you're in Japan right now.
Yeah, I'm in Kyoto.
So is there like a cultural difference with how people consume news as well?
I mean, I think it's not so different at the in a foundational level, which is people are prioritizing signal, are interested in signal rich information, right? They want to know what's actually going on, and they want to be able to react and make decisions against credible, factual, concise information. I think that is just this much of a case in the US as it is in Asia, as it is in Europe. I think the sensationalizing of everything has happened to a lesser extent in Japan. So the pain isn't like as the disillusionment and pain here isn't as profound as it is in the United States. But ultimately people are after the same thing. People want like pure information that isn't trying to manipulate them, isn't trying to influence them.
I think you're definitely right that the news media is broken in certain countries. I noticed it maybe a decade ago during the Brexit vote in this country. It
Yeah,
was it was weird. I was like, with was who were meant to be the best and the brightest when it comes to this type of news. We were watching the coverage with a bunch of people who were studying politics at Cambridge, and none of us had a reliable sense of which side is actually better. If you strip the emotions out of it, like give me a real economic or sociological argument for the what's going to happen after we leave the union. Neither side, nobody cared. The journalists on the television didn't care. The clickbaiters on the internet didn't care. So it was actually a real exercise in trying to even form an informed opinion about the matter.
absolutely. And I feel like that has not been fixed in any way. It is still a very troublesome media environment, both in the UK and many other parts of Europe. And it's just a real shame because like we live in a world where we technologically and progress wise, like we can have really pure information. And we have tools today that our ancestors couldn't have even dreamed of. And we're still playing childish games in our media landscape. We're still clickbaiting, sensationalizing, dramatizing, being verbose, being distracting, soliciting in moments of, what should be really real focus, moments where it should be real. It's not a trivial matter to inform people. We have an informed population. This is a mission critical, so to speak, endeavor. And it's just, I think it's quite embarrassing to still live in a world that makes everyday people disoriented, makes everyday people, makes it hard for them to make decisions, makes it hard for them to know what's going on. Like the fact that, during the year leading up to Brexit, I mean, that was a long breakup story. The time leading up to it and the time surrounding it, people had no like idea what was happening. Like they couldn't explain to you what is actually going on. And that level of disorientation just a decade ago, I think is unacceptable. Right. And now we're reliving very similarly loud stories with Trump, with Iran, with Ukraine, with Russia, with China, many different competing forces, obviously with Europe as well. We're not in a position where we should be reliving this mass disorientation that to a great extent is media induced. We need to be able to stay informed and be able to navigate information, complex information in an easy way. But all the structures that exist around us on the landscape of media don't clarify, they mislead. They don't make it certain, they make it disorienting. And I just think that's a terrible sin almost. It's a terrible thing that we've inherited. And that's why I'm passionate about the project that we're running is because we want to build a viable alternative to a disorienting media landscape.
Hmm. Do you have a practical example for people, an issue that this might get controversial quickly, but an issue where legacy media and or the all the various social media services are covering it horribly, and what would your text message say instead?
Yeah, I mean, it's you have to go far from example, right? Because clearly there are, it's every story, right? Our whole thesis is that every story is unfortunately ridiculously sensationalized and created to be attention grabbing rather than to be clear. Right? For example, when the US and Israel began strikes on Iran, right, it was very hard to tell. Again, you wake up in the morning, you're like, hey, like, what's going on? Like, what happened? Right? You're kind of in this disoriented state. And if you go online and you start reading that content, right, many sides are going to report on it differently. They're going to tell different stories. And they're also going to talk about it in ways that dramatize the issue, saying like, hey, World War III started, unprecedented strikes, you know, US wipes out Iranian nuclear missile. Like it's all these like dramatic, big, attention grabbing words, right? And when you read our coverage, for example, I can read you the summary that we have on that issue. It is just reduced to like what exactly happened, when did it happen, and what is the immediate context for you to very briefly understand what's going down right now. I can read you a point from our executives news briefing that we delivered to our reader. Would that be helpful?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So you have to remember it comes in an SMS. So it's very, very concise, very, very concise because a single SMS we only send one SMS in the morning, has 5 to 6 to 7 bullet points that describe what changed the world in the last 24 hours. So point number one, this is March 4th. US Israeli strikes on Iran continue for the fourth day, targeting missile launchers, nuclear facilities, and government sites. Iran retaliates with missiles and drone attacks on Israel and Gulf states hosting US bases. Iranian Red Crescent reports 780 plus killed in 1,000 plus strikes, right? So that's it. That's the extent of what you need to know in that specific moment, as before there's more information available, and it's told in a way that isn't suggesting that hey, this is the end of the world, or isn't suggesting that hey, you should be scared or angry or agitated. Here's just exactly what happened, right? So the next point that I think is have come the next day. Point number two: Iran closes Strait of Hormuz and warns it will attack, quote, any ship attempting to pass, quote. Choke point carries about 20% of global oil supply in Gulf producers to world markets. Both of these kind of bullet level summaries are written in a way where you read them, you get the signal, and if you want to learn more, you obviously can. There are ways that we make it easy for you, but right away, right before finishing your coffee and arriving in your office, or getting out of a taxi and walking into wherever you work, you already know, and it can be part of conversation, part of the social awareness of what's changing in the world, right? How is the world changing real time? And you're connected to that information.
And if you read it out to the taxi driver, he'll give you the rest of the story, right?
Has to be that way.
Yeah, he'll know.
That's the unlimited news commentary that is always plentifully available. But I always want to distinguish news commentary is free. News commentary has always been free. It's been on TV, it's been on the radio, it's been in your family dinner table, and it's been everywhere you look. But news itself is precious and is rare and is very, very hard to find. I always sort of point it out to kind of new users or to people who are just taking an interest in what we do, is that hey, news is not free. And news has never been free. Commentary has always been free. And the two things could not be further apart.
Yeah. I stop there on something that you said in the first text message there, from March 4th.
Yeah.
Did you say that the Iranians said there were 780 killed in over 1,000 strikes, or did I mishear that?
Yes, but it was the Iranian Red Crescent. So I don't believe that is the official Iranian sort of government, right?
No, but if that number is true, that means they fired 1,000 missiles and only 780 people died. That is an insanely low number. So most
Yeah,
of this has hit equipment rather than humans.
right, right. And you're someone who's served, you understand how hard it is, especially in places that put the military equipment, put sites alongside human capital. It's it's a very hard thing to do, and it is an impressive number.
That number alone should be a headline on the news. That's insane. And I'm sure that ratio has gotten a little bit worse with time as this war goes on, but that initial ratio is wild.
Right, right. And and no one ever has the real numbers, right? They're only proxies and approximations. And one of the things that we do and take very seriously is we always cite, right? Who is this number coming from? Right, in this case, it's the Iranian Red Crescent. We're not saying that Iranian Red Crescent is the end all be all source of truth, but this is the data point that at this point it's always relevant that comes from them, right? So when UN has estimates, we're going to say, hey, here's what UN is saying. Okay, if Iran has publishes figures, we'll say, oh, here's what Iran is publishing officially. Here's what the UN claims. Here's what the Red Crescent claims. Here's like what US estimates. And instead of asserting numbers to be true, which no one can ever do, like no one can ever assert numbers to be true in an ambiguous, real-time, dynamic environment like a war, right? And we always have the humility and sort of the groundedness to say, well, here's where we're getting these numbers. Here's who's saying them. We're reporting it in a clear, digestible way. We don't assume this to be true. We don't assert this to be true. I think that's an important element of our approach, of always attributing sources, right? Like we use a lot of quotes, right? If somebody's saying something, we would never just take that, paraphrase it, and say, "Here's what's happening," right? That's extremely just intellectually, journalistically, reporting wise, dishonest and just wrong. We would always attribute, like, here's who is reporting this number. Here is who this quote is from. We're trying to create source attribution that is very clear so that when you're encountered with a quote, encountered with a number, you don't just get it without context. You get it and you get, oh, this is the Prime Minister of Japan saying this, or hey, this is Trump saying this. Right? That's also something we take very, very seriously.
Yeah. And this reminds me of when the Ukraine invasion started in full. I had this like real frustration that I could only get news that was telling me how I should feel about what's happening rather than telling me what's happening. And I was looking and I was asking people who are smart, like, how do I actually find out what's moving, what forces are moving, and where, and how they're doing, and who's winning, rather than state media in Finland or wherever I was at the time telling me how I'm supposed to feel about all this. I already feel pretty goddamn scared about another war in Europe. I don't need, I don't need, just tell me. And that way, I didn't find you guys. I found the Defense and Aerospace Report, which is run by Vago Muradi, and he's now a friend of the show. So, and he's been on, but I found like this one like defense industry niche podcast and publication that actually just calculated like how many missiles do they have on this front and how many artillery shells are they short over there. That gave me like a real picture of what's going on, and then I can make my emotions around that.
Hmm. Yeah, I think I love that you mentioned that. It's quite literally we want to give you the power to make up your own mind instead of telling you how to feel, instead of telling you how to think. On the contrary, we want to give you the tools, the ingredients, the building blocks of making up your own mind, of deciding how you feel, deciding what you think, instead of insisting that you should feel one way or another. And that's like another really critical differentiation or point of difference between how we think of information purity and how it is currently done across legacy news media.
By the way, is there, having mentioned wars again, is there an application? Is there a risk that someone comes with a big offer to you guys to use either the data or the technology to apply this as a sort of influence operation somehow?
I mean, we currently don't like we refuse advertisement revenue, which is like the mildest format of that happening. Right? It's like the mildest format is advertisers coming to us and saying, "Hey, we want to advertise, but obviously you need to include the content that we care about, either thematically or literally our product placement." And we say, "No, like this is a lot of money we could be making, right? This could be a very profitable operation for us." But we absolutely do not want that to happen. Like we absolutely like we exist. Like our whole premise for existing is to refuse and to deny that approach to media, where the content is just a conduit for influence and just a conduit for solicitation and advertisement, right? We are 100% committed to this mission of, we want to inform people. And the only way to do that is to not let in outside, like, ulterior influence of people looking to either promote the products or influence people based, on sponsorships of issues they care about. It would be very ironic for us to go in that direction. Be very ironic.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, it would probably more, yeah, more the risk would be I mean, hopefully you guys grow and it all goes extremely well, but then that some government would requisition it without asking you. That's more like what the risk could be, not you guys giving up on your principles, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, currently, there's no plan whatsoever to fundraise money. Like we are so concerned with our independence that we don't even accept investment interests, right? We don't accept people who want to invest money in our operation, right? We maintaining complete independence, and that's already I think a pretty strong signal around like we have no interest in selling the company or being acquired and giving over control of our mission, and definitely not in anything of that kind, right? So it's like so far we've really walked the walk of our mission when it comes to, hey, independence is really important to us. Independence from advertisers, independence from sponsors, independence from investors, independence from any force that brings an ulterior, like external, an ulterior external influence.
Yeah. I mean, it's such an admirable idea. I love it. Um, I have a tough one before I got a couple of fun rapid fires for you for the end.
Sounds good.
I know this one probably annoys you because everyone is probably asking you this ad nauseum. They ask me too. What is the risk that someone looks at what you're doing, feeds your stuff into a future version of AI, and it does a pretty good job replicating what you're doing?
That's impossible. I mean, at the current stage of, the state of AI, right? This obviously could change in the future, but at the current stage of where we are in AI doesn't reason. AI is incapable of reasoning. AI can only guess the best next word in a sequence of words. AI is essentially a very glorified word cloud, right? Remember those word clouds back in the day? Like, you upload a text to this website and tells you which words are big, which words are small, and based on their frequency of being repeated. Like it's AI as it stands today is much closer to that experience than it is to anything else. And I just think it's worth noting that it's like we're not in a place where we can truly have a thinking machine, truly have a solution that can reason. And in order to deal with facts and to deal with dynamic, factual, and important kind of critical information such as news, you can't trust that to a technology that is only emulating that is only faking, that is only imitating reasoning, but not actually reasoning. And so the data also shows that they've done benchmarking studies across every model, and they keep doing them, over time. And LLMs just cannot handle news-related questions. Like even with the browser access that's been becoming more and more commonplace with Claude, with agentic AI, even with that ability, large language models are, notoriously bad at preserving factuality and at reasoning. And news-related questions, the benchmarking study that I'm referencing, news-related questions, it just cannot handle. Like it hallucinates and makes things up on news-related questions at an alarming rate. I would say any rate would be alarming, but the rate at which LLMs do it is exceptionally alarming. I remember it was something like 40% of news-related questions are like made up. I don't remember the exact number, but it'd be a great study to resurface.
Especially in the free models that are available to the public, you ask it a critical
Exactly.
question like, you ask it something like, why are India and Pakistan fighting or something? And you don't even read the response, just look at what it uses as sources. It's like Reddit and X and all that stuff. It's garbage. And the answer you might be getting by accident sometimes is good, but somewhere else someone is asking the same question, and he or she is getting a horrible answer. So
Right.
yeah,
Right. I think it's a good observation.
yeah, man. I'm really impressed by this actually. Can I ask you a couple of fun ones?
Please.
You seem like an exceptionally intelligent guy, so give us a book recommendation, or if no one has time to read books, some kind of audio content recommendation for what you've read recently, or something related to this, the death of the media and so forth.
I actually think an essay that comes to mind is related to AI that I think right now, people should be spending more time understanding what's going on around them, in AI related ways. And I think there's a really big lag or delay between the people that are leading the industry and the people that are in the tech bubble who are orchestrating, creating, facilitating this future for us. And the everyday person who is too busy to like catch up and figure out what's going on. And so there's a very big like knowledge gap, understanding gap, awareness gap of what's going on and what matters and what is real and what is noise. And there's an essay that I really like. It's called "Have Mercy on Us, Bag of Words." And
Mm.
that's just a great piece. It's a very short read, but it's very well written. It's an essay by a blog called Experimental History. And it's just like a personal blog of a person who's thoughtful. And it's widely circulated in circles that I'm in. And it's been an essay that I was just really impressed by. It tells a story of where we are right now with AI in very simple terms, using a lot of analogies and metaphors, but in very clear terms, right? And it sort of checks the enthusiasm of, hey, yeah, this is about to be the end of the world, is about to be the beginning of a new world. Like, hey, it's not so dramatic. What you're dealing with is just a bag of words, and it just it tells a story well. I would recommend anyone who has any interest in AI, or also people that don't, because you're not gonna have a choice, right? This is a tectonic shift that we're living through. To read that essay and to sort of internalize the very simple framework that it puts forward that I think is very useful.
Awesome, I found it. Yeah, and they've had the courtesy of also including a article voiceover, so you can choose to listen to it as a 19.5 minute podcast as well. So that's great.
You love the voiceover.
Yeah, I will right after this, man. I love the voiceover. Then there's a famous alarmist essay called AI 2027. Have you read that?
No, actually, I haven't heard of it. I'm curious about it.
AI 2027 by Daniel Cocotillo et al.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's a really cool concept, but it's really alarmist. You won't agree with it, of where AI is going. They basically say it'll take over the world by 2027.
Oh, how exciting.
how uh, how exciting! We'll see if they're right. I had another one. Who's your favorite if you had to pick out of all the tech CEOs that are now the biggest celebrities in our society? Got a favorite?
It's hard, I kind of like I don't fetishize tech CEOs as much as like the rest of the world tends to. So I don't like necessarily have my fantasy roster of my favorite CEOs, but I think the CEO of Anthropic, and all the stuff going on with the Department of War and that whole kind of like PR stint that's kind of currently ongoing. I think he's a pretty charming guy. I think he talks well, and I think he's sort of like thoughtful and very approachable. And I like the idea of thoughtful, approachable leaders. And right now, like the Anthropic CEO is cultivating that image, it appears.
Yeah, and seems like courageous decision to go against what governments want to do with some of this stuff. But his shareholders, other stakeholders may not agree with it, losing
Right.
Pentagon contracts and whatnot.
Right.
Take some balls. Hey, tell everyone where can they find inform.now website, Instagram, all the jazz.
Yeah. And we should put those in the show notes as well. But inform.now, we're borrowing the page from the marketing playbook of crypto.com, of booking.com, acquisition.com, where our brand name is also our website. And informed.now is best accessible on the informed.now website. Obviously that's really easy to find. We're also active across all social media that you know has any relevance. Inform.now is the best way to find us on Instagram, on TikTok, on LinkedIn. And we try to be very active in kind of sharing and telling our story. So yeah, we should drop those links for anyone who's interested and wants to follow along the journey of pioneering news minimalism and pioneering news mindfulness. And it would be great to find any people who are among our listeners who resonate with the mission of letting people and empowering people make up their own mind instead of trying to influence them every step of the way.
Exactly. Man, I'm inspired by it. I love the idea. Hey, Kira, this is I'm rooting for you guys. This is a great idea. I'm truly actually inspired by someone trying to do something good for critical thinking or information. So find all the links in the show description and follow this show as well. The email address for hate mail is in the description as well, and the link to the website where you can contact us and recommend your favorite or least favorite neighbor or relative to come on as well. And hey, Kira Shishkin, thank you for your time. Inform.now.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a great conversation. I'm very, very grateful.